Live from New York, this is WIUR Radio.
What's up, gals? Welcome to my first episode of the show, Theories with Nia, where we talk about different theories that will have you thinking a lot throughout the day when we talk about it. The first theory that we have for episode one is talking about how time is technically an illusion. Not technically, well, time is an illusion, and basically a perspective of what we think it is. The first part we talk about is the word now and what it means to us. Time, it's one thing that every human experience, yet nobody fully really understands. We wake up, we age, we watch clocks tick forward, and we assume time is flowing like a river or a steady, unstoppable, always moving from past to future. But what if there's an entire feeling is a trick? What if time doesn't flow at all? What if past, present, future all exist simultaneously and our consciousness is simply sliding across just like a fixed landscape? Today, we're going to dive into one of the mind bending ideas of physics and a little bit of philosophy, the possibility that time is an illusion. Let's start with Einstein. As we all know, Albert Einstein and all of his theories. His theory of relativity didn't just change physics, it changed our understanding of reality itself. According to relativity, space and time aren't separate things. They're fused into a single dimensional structure called space time, as we all have heard in various of shows, for example, Stranger Things. In this model of a space time, the universe is like, think of it as like a giant block, like we'll call it like a block universe. Every moment that has ever happened and every moment that ever will happen already exists in this block. The moment you were born, it's still there. The moment you leave this world, it's basically still there. The moment you're experiencing right now, it's still there. And from this perspective, time doesn't flow, nothing is becoming, everything simply is. Your consciousness is what moves, not really time. Imagine like a DVD, the entire movie exists on one disc at once, beginning, middle, and the end. But you only experience it in the frame by frame. That's like the block universe. You're the player, not the film. The depth of the universal now. One of the biggest reasons physics takes this idea seriously because relativity destroys the idea of the universe now. If you're sitting still and someone else is moving quickly, the two of you will disagree about obviously what you see and what you don't see, which in events in the universe are happening right now. Your present is not the same as their present, and it never will be because it's basically your perspective versus their perspective. This means now isn't a fundamental feature of the universe. It's basically like a perspective like left and right. You'll sit on one side of the room, somebody says this happens, you'll sit on the other side of the room, another person says this happens. If the present is subjective, then the flow of the time becomes subjected to, it's like the brain's role. Now let's bring a little bit of science, and I'm not a science major or a neuroscience major, so these are just facts that obviously you have to research about. But let's bring it into the equation with about your brain, how your brain doesn't process reality in real time, technically. It collects sensory information, delays it slightly, and basically puts it together into like a smooth sailing narrative where there's nothing that's choppy. Some researchers argue that the feeling of time flowing is like a cognitive illusion, a story your brain tells to make sense of change, not fully the truth at all times. Think about motion pictures. A series is like a series of still frames shown quickly enough that your brain invents movement. The time might be the same trick, but on just a much more deeper level. Your brain is the narrator, reality is the book, and the flow is just the way the narrator reads it. Um, So, sorry guys. That brings us into our first commercial.
This is WIUR Radio.
Hi, I'm Morgan Beastie from the Ionian, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Are you looking for the latest scoop on campus news, sports, and more? Check out the Ionian, Iona University's very own award-winning student newspaper. We keep you up to date with everything happening on and off campus. Want to know about the big game, the latest campus event? It's all in the Ionian. Join the conversation. Read, write, and get involved. Visit www.theionian.org or pick up a copy around campus. Stay informed, stay connected. Now, back to WIUR, Iona University Radio.
All right, now that we're back from our first commercial and our first break, let's get into the second segment of Time is Really an Illusion and just a perspective on what you think it is. Let's go into the quantum strategies and the physiological battles that plays a role into this. Now it's going to get a little bit complicated, but hopefully you can follow along and really try to understand what I'm trying to put together here. All right. So quantum physics, right, adds another layer of strangeness, obviously, to this crazy conspiracy theory that, of course, I'm talking about. And some interpretations, like many worlds interpretation, every possible outcome of every event exists simultaneously in vast multiverse. Um, which means everything you do always has like a cause and effect. Obviously, everything you do has a certain outcome. Whether you're driving, you turn left, something different can happen if you're driving and you turn right. Everything has some type of different outcome, no matter what you do. Which means, in that view, all moments exist, all possibilities exist. Your consciousness is simply following one path through this basically enormous structure. All right. It's almost like you can say walking through a forest where, like I said, every possible trail already exists. You're not creating this path, you're choosing it, which brings us back to if you're driving, you choose to go right. That path is different if you choose to go left, obviously. That's basically what your brain is doing. This fits great with the idea that time is technically not really flowing. It's already laid out because it's already path that's already been created, not you're creating the path. But quantum physics doesn't just change our intuition. It challenges sense of identity. If every possible version of you exists somewhere, then what does it mean to be you in this particular moment? Some physicists argue that consciousness might be the mechanism that selects which branch of reality you experience. Others say consciousness is just along for the ride. This has been an ongoing argument for a bunch of philosophers over hundreds and like for years now about just consciousness itself and what does it technically mean as a human. But either way, quantum mechanics refuses to give us a simple, basic linear timeline. It suggests a universe far stranger and far more static than we imagine. Now, let's bring in the physiological clash with the quantum that kind of doesn't go hand in hand, but kind of does. Stay with me here. Of course, not everyone agrees with the block universe, as we talked about in the first part. All right. Philosophers who believe only the present is real are called presentists. They argue that the past is technically gone once you've already moved on with your future, right? The future really doesn't exist yet, and only the present moment is real. So what you're experiencing right now is real. The future does not technically exist. It's everything that is going on now. In the past, whatever happened before, it's it's just gone. Like you just don't have to like think about it anymore technically. It's all an intuitive view. It matches how we feel. But presentis runs into a major problem that kind of contradicts them. Relatively doesn't give us a clean definition. The present. If two people can disagree about what's happening right now, then what does now truly even mean? If you really think about it and put it into perspective. This is exactly why many physicists lean towards the block universe. Not because it feels intuitive, but because it just fits the math. It's just arguably the block universe makes the most sense than just the intuition of what time really means. Presentism, the growing block theory, philosophers have been battling over this for centuries, but modern physics keeps nudging us towards a reality of where time is not what it seems. All right. That was the end of the second segment. And we're going to go into our second commercial and get right into the third one.
Untouchable, unstoppable.
This is WIUR Sports Radio.
Hi, I'm Robbie Basil, president of WIUR Radio, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Have you ever wanted to call the biggest games, the biggest moments for the biggest names for Iona Athletics? Then the newly founded WIUR Sports Radio is the place to be. Launched in January of 2025, our goal is to try and get broadcasters here at Iona an opportunity to learn, succeed, and get a chance to be on air. From getting to call the big moments at the hack,
Dinkins trying to go to the rack. Denied. Yafet Mundi with
to seeing the crack of the bat at City Park.
the line drive into left field, around third, and it kicks away. The Gales are going to win it in 10.
We make those moments happen on our brand new WIUR Sports Radio platform on Mixer. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me via email or to the rest of my e-board to join the club. We are WIUR Sports Radio, the new home of Iona Athletics. Now, back to the show on WIUR, Iona University Radio.
All right, let's get right back into it. This brings us to our final and last second segment. And I know we're going by pretty fast here, and we really are, but there's only so much you could talk about with a lot of these conspiracy theories. And I think this time one should really eye open a lot of you guys. But let's bring this into now, let's add free will, the meaning of free will, and basically just the human experience. So, time might not be like something like a river we're floating down. It might just be, think of it like a landscape we're walking through, right? It's vast, it's unmoving, and it's already complete. All right. All right. So, some thinkers, okay, my fault. If all moments already exist, then what does that really mean for free will if we're thinking it as if like a landscape, right? Some thinkers say yes. The future is already fixed. Even though we just said in the last segment that the future doesn't exist and we're only living in the present, we also have to think about we also have to add about free will and just the human experience and what we've already been taught to as humans ourselves, right? You're simply just experiencing the part of a timeline your consciousness is currently on. That's what we basically explain. Others argue that consciousness might still have a role in selecting in which a path through space-time was experienced. All right, now we're getting a little bit out of left, but stay with me here. Maybe the universe is fixed, but your awareness can move in kind of different ways if we think about it. In some of middle ground, even if the future exists. We really don't know it. So our choices still matter in a meaningful way. Just because people say, oh, your future depends on this if you do this, in a way, they're technically correct because your now choices do affect what happens next in the future because we don't know what the future technically is if we're really thinking about it. All right. Um, Others argue that consciousness might still have a role in selecting which path through space time we experience. Maybe the universe is fixed, but your awareness can move through it in different ways, right? But here's a real mind bender of it. It's if time is illusion, then the question is, do we really have free will? Might itself be based on misunderstanding of how reality works? Maybe free will isn't about changing the future. Maybe it's about how we experience the future that already exists. You feel me? All right. And maybe that's just basically where free will lives. Not in rewriting the future, but how you interpret the path you're already walking. Not in altering the structure of space-time, but in the awareness bringing you each moment you encounter. If time is a landscape, then consciousness is basically a traveler. Curious, searching, and changing, evolving as time and the world and years go past. And if that means your story isn't defined by the path itself, but by the way you walk it and the way you truly believe of what you think it is. And that brings me into conclusion. If time doesn't flow, if the past and future are just as real as the present, if our consciousness is simply scanning across a fixed universe, then the way we think about life, choice, meaning, and existence might need a complete rewrite. Time might not be the river that we're actually floating down, what I said in the beginning, but it might be the landscape we're walking through one step at a time. And if that's the truth, then every moment you've ever lived, every moment you ever seen is already a part of the universe grand scheme. You're not racing through time, you're exploring it. And that brings us to the end of our first episode of Theories with Nia. I hope you guys really enjoyed it and I hope you guys really liked it. Bye.